Hey guys, this is Faye from Faye's World Media. Today we're going to jump into a topic I'm very interested and also very dear and near to my heart, and that is PodIntelligence. So my partner, Adam Leffert, and I started developing PodIntelligence in early 2022. And the reason we wanted to create kind of a specialized clip making tool, but in addition, further analyze all the longer form content, such as long form podcasts and long form webinars for or with business topics, was because a lot of the tools out there, they're great for their purposes, particularly for social media, vertical content, very quick hits. As a business person, I always want to make sure that the output is of high quality. So what's special about PodIntelligence or PI is that we actually humanly review all these assets, at least give it a top line. So that's really sort of an AI and human collaboration, so to speak. We price it accordingly. So in a way, we kind of price ourselves out of the, hey, here are a bunch of clips for $5, $10, $20. This is not actually the first video that I recorded on this channel. Over the years, I haven't really talked about it as much. However, the reality is that there's been so many new and exciting features, which I'm going to walk you through everything in this video. If you are tired and bored and think some are not as relevant to you, simply use the chapters or show notes in the description below. You can simply jump to the parts that might really be relevant to your business in this moment. Before we get started, I want to call out a few key differentiators as to why PI, PodIntelligence, even exists and why we continue to support it and work with new and existing clients. Is that number one, that intonation of people speaking during podcasts and webinars can vary a great deal. I'm not just talking about different accents, different nationalities, but also the way we speak in general. A lot of the clipping tools or content or video content analysis tools out there don't always take this part into consideration or don't do it as well. For the past few years, we spent tremendous amount of time studying different podcasts to figure out why some of the clipping tools are just not as good. Why people, end halfway through or midway through a sentence. The Q&A, if there are sort of panel discussions, the content itself, the quality isn't that good. So we do our best to continue to enhance it over the years. Number two, speaking of which, we do have clips as well as Q&A. So clips are single speakers, whereas Q&As are typically two speakers. This way you get the question as well as the answer. And this way you can actually test out on social media, particularly platforms like YouTube and LinkedIn, to see if people really prefer to hear only the speakers, or in some cases, maybe you as a creator, as the podcast host. Third one, most of the clipping tools focus on a single episode at a time. Or sure, you can upload 20, 30 episodes, but at the end of the day, you're looking at them individually. So PodIntelligence actually cross-references everything for you to find things like creativity or artificial intelligence or boardroom meetings and things like that across different episodes. Now, what we have discovered is that when you analyze certain topics or keywords across different episodes, you have much more complete picture and learning of that particular topic or subject matter. And this really means a great deal to businesses. And secondly, it is just interesting, even if you are the speaker, you are the creator talking about something specific. So for me, like the creator economy, the journey as a content creator, it's really interesting to see how I evolve over the years. Number four really is for us to focus on towards the second half of this video, that there has been so many more features introduced to PodIntelligence. So instead of only focusing on videos and clips, we started introducing documentations and summaries. In addition to Transcript, we also have outlines summarizing the long-form podcast or the webinar. We have Gen AI Q&A. So what it means is you will have, retrospectively speaking, AI's power is to go back to long-form content and put structure and add clarity to something that may not exist in the raw content. So you may have experienced this, especially if you're a host or even a panelist, that sometimes what you prepare for that webinar is not exactly how it turned out to be. There may be fewer or more questions being asked, or there may be follow-ups you didn't quite expect or didn't quite plan for. Another tab is called when, then. When this happens, then you can take this type of action. Now, that has been one of the most popular hits with content creators, with creative entrepreneurs. Then we have leverage points, goals, strategies, tactics, as well as first principles. I'm not going to go into greater details right now because probably going to bore you to death. You do have to see kind of how it all works together through the examples I'm about to show you. Now, before we kind of go into this deep dive, I do want to say that if you want to test out PodIntelligence fully with your own content, I encourage you to use the link below in the description and also as a first comment to send your long form content, something like 60, 90 minutes even, send it to us. We're going to process it for you. You can see how it works. As always, PodIntelligence works great with business content and context, webinars and podcasts. If you're looking for just 3 to 5 clips from a single episode and just be done with it, I do recommend other tools such as Munch, Opus Clips, Video, those type of things, not necessarily PodIntelligence. So with that, let's get started to see what we can do together. So let me give you a general walkthrough. I'm going to assume a lot of you guys are not familiar with this at all. So what you probably do know is that I started podcasting in 2014. So at this point, a little over 10 years, I have 350 plus episodes. So I often ask myself, what are some of the snippets and keywords and things, and especially knowledge that I have learned over the years, and how I'm able to retrieve them very easily without all this extra effort. If I want to search for something, I just want there to be available. So take a look at this episode list right now. These are by alphabetical order. I can go ahead and example would be to filter on, let's say Face World, Barry and Cosmo episode, Basila Bukoko, Chris Voss, Dan Cooper, Dory Clark. Why not, right? I have some live streams here as well. Once they're filtered, these clips will come into play. Now, I also have over here Gen AI questions. Now, let me tell you why I love these questions. It's because, I matured over the course of 10 years. I'm definitely much better now as an interviewer compared to where I was. It's definitely an experience I have to go through. Now, you will notice in your webinar, your interview segments, your experience, whether you're an interviewee where you're watching other people creating content, is sometimes it takes a little while to get to the question out of nervousness, maybe not very familiar with the subject, for example. Now, these AI questions are looking at the clips that are generated, basically based on the filter I just showed you. And it's not guessing, but it's looking at the answer and regenerating that question. This is super powerful. So, for example, I can click on things like, how did you feel when you first visited Africa after growing up in Spain? I already know which question this is related to which episode. How did you find a musical theater coach? Very specific, right? Again, you'll be surprised, like the amount of work that you'll learn, how you can relearn from the existing content. So on the left-hand side here, I have Basila Bukoko as part of Face World documentary. So is Dory Clark on the right-hand side. And let's just go ahead and play that real quick. Now, you won't be able to hear this very well because I'm speaking into the microphone, but this is something that you can play with. And if you are watching this clip at this point, I would encourage you to check out podintelligence.com and simply send your episode, ideally video, but we can also process audio as well. Send them to us, send an episode or two, and we'll show you how it works. It's really helpful to look at your own content. Now, because we're looking at my content, I want to quickly walk you through what's going on here on the clip card. So if we're looking at Dory Clark here on the right-hand side, we have the client, or think about that may be different podcasts you have, or for me, this could be different projects too. So you have the episode name, you have the topic, which is coaching, and the keyword is finding a coach. Now, the difference between topics and keywords are topics are broader categories, umbrellas, whereas keywords are more specific. Another example would be a general topic is AI or artificial intelligence, and keywords would be, AI for school, AI for education, AI for small businesses, etc. And over here on the right-hand side in this column, we have the speaker, clip range. You know exactly the source of this content and how to find it from the original source or the original content. The duration, how long this clip is, and there's a unique clip ID. Now you will notice here under on the right-hand side, you have the full transcript, so you can copy and paste, and you can even search for keywords within it, which I'll show you in a moment. And down here, you have the download video clip and download audio clip. When I click on that, watch the right-hand side over here. You're able to get the clip right away. And the clip is basically the same quality as your original content, right? Whatever you provide us with, if it's 1080p, well, that's the quality of your clip. So it's not downgraded at any level. And it's very, I would say, content creator friendly. You can easily use that across social media, for example. You can also very easily copy this clip, copy this transcript. You can put a bookmark. If you're working with, let's say, a social media manager, if you're working with a virtual assistant, you can bookmark these and be able to find them very, very easily. Bookmarks selected. You can also remove and clear bookmarks. And so with that said, what I want to do is clear the filter. I want to show you the power of text search. So text search is free text search. And what it means is that this is a feature that currently doesn't exist in a lot of other clipping tools. And when you search for text, for example, something as simple as, let's say, social network, right? So once I search for social, and looks like social media is something that I do talk about a lot. You'll notice like social as a single phrase is mentioned in all these clips you can see just based on the highlights. Now, if you want to search for a phrase such as social media, what you can do is put double quotes around that, and now you're searching for the phrase social media. So you can see here, social media, even the only social is highlighted, but it is the phrase social media we're searching for. Let's go into the next tab, which is Q&A. So here I am, it's now searching and basically browsing through my entire collection of Phase World podcast, live stream, etc. Now, what I can show you, let's pick a particular episode, maybe just a little easier. Let's pick Dory Clark again, and then Chris Voss. So now you'll notice that it's a Q&A, and the speakers, there are two people, but we have the question speaker, we have the answer speaker. And I really love this, guys, because these clips are longer sometimes. If my question's a little bit longer, sometimes the clip or the answer's a bit longer. And there's so much content. And I would say something real quick here, because a lot of us content creators, podcasters, particularly women, I think, tend to fade into the background. The questions are very short, or when you use the clips on social media, you're not even there. I just want to remind you that this is your content, this is your show, and you deserve to be there. In fact, you'll notice, if you don't believe me, double check this. When you have a clip shared on, let's say, LinkedIn, and you are there with your guest, and when your audience sees you, they're more likely to click and engage and watch the content. It's that simple. So this is the very reason why I love Q&A. It's not by removing yourself from the show. We're only let the guest speak. You are there too, and you add value. And I don't have to really add too much here because this part is quite similar to the clips I just explained. And all right, let's take a look at episodes here. So this is a new feature my partner Adam was just walking me through earlier today, and I'm excited to share them with you. So under episodes, the user interface changes. Why is that important? All right, let's take a look at Allison Cheston. So Allison Cheston is one of my dear friends who's also a career consultant for people generally around the age of their 20s. So think about people about to graduate from college all the way till about 30, maybe 35. So when I interviewed Allison Cheston about her service, I was really intrigued. And she's a very successful career consultant, and there's a lot that I've learned. So when I click on this episode, on the right-hand side, you will notice there are assets for selected episode, but not just a single tab. There are actually multiple tabs here. I'm going to explain each and every one of them and show you the results that we are able to generate. First is the transcript. No news there. Sometimes we take transcript for granted, but remember, when you work with PodIntelligence, this is part of the package you get. So that means that you don't have to go to a third party trying to generate transcriptions, which actually costs quite a lot of money depending on, number of hours and things like that. Now let's go into outline. So what is an outline? Exactly by the sound of it, it is the outline of the episode. But it's not just a generic one. It's actually pretty detailed. For example, introduction and follow-up, career advice, clarification, specific passion versus finding meaning, managing burnout and self-care, giving and receiving feedback at work. It's super helpful, right? Now let's go into the Gen AI Q&A.
So again, this one I really love because I'm able to use them directly, as a social media card, like text-based content. Sometimes I like to really vary up my social media presence. It's not always videos. Even if it's video, doesn't mean always long form or short form. I really like text content. A lot of people are scrolling at work, for example, they don't really want sound to come up suddenly. So you can see that these Gen AI Q&As are very clean. What is Allison Cheston's opinion on over delivering at work? How can young people effectively communicate? Very crisp and clean. And here are Allison Cheston's answers. So the fourth tab is when and then. At the beginning, I was like, oh, what's the value here? So that's really interesting. When and then, as you can see, when this happens, then what you should do, why you should do this, why that's important, and specific actions. If we look at one example, career advice and strategies for young professionals. I hope there's some young professionals watching this right now. So when you're seeking clarity on career advice and the notion of finding passion feels overwhelming, then focus on gaining experience and finding meaning in your work rather than fixating and on discovering a singular passion. So I feel like there's some overlapping themes that Michael Leckie and I talked about as well when people are looking for jobs in general. Why? Because excessive emphasis on passion can lead to paralysis, blah, blah, blah. Actions, here are something you can do. And the outcome. And Allison has extensive experience over multiple decades, and she was able to share with us what the outcomes are, not from a single person, but from multiple people. So feel free to explore there. Now, the fifth tab is leverage point. So what is a leverage point? I think these, to me, at least, are key, I would say, key takeaways. There are not a lot of them from each episode, but for example, burnout due to over delivering. I feel like I mentioned that a few times. So why is this a leverage point? What is the illustration and actionable insight? So burnout among young professionals due to constant over delivering can affect overall productivity and even mental health. In the illustration, what does that look like? Young professionals often neglect self-care, leading to severe burnout. Actionable insights: ensure regular self-care routines, including adequate sleep, exercise, and proper nutrition. This is like something I wish I knew in my 20s and in my early 30s. I think all of my 30s, really. Working in full-time jobs as well as working as a YouTuber, I definitely experienced burnout, even denying it for years. And now it's something I have to pay for and then really, pick this up and exercise on a regular basis. I think this is really quite interesting. I do like this card format. It's something that I can already envision, for example, like a checklist that I can publish on LinkedIn, inviting questions, as well as like an art card, as a social media card on Instagram. So let's go into the sixth tab. Now, when you first look at goals, strategies, and tactics, they feel almost similar to when and then, but remember the goals are more general and the strategies are things for you to consider. Now, from this page, you have to come up with your own action plans. And remember that this is more flexible. Again, the direction of these assets for selected episodes from the most trivial, the most frequently used, to something a little more esoteric, like a little bit more, I would say, for experimentation, exploration, and for part of this is self-discovery. So some people just find understanding the goals and understanding the strategy better than somebody feeding them what the action plans are. They want to come up and understand the why and then come up with these action plans on their own. So for example, how does that differ for the over delivering at work? So strategy here is targeted over delivery. Identify key tasks where over delivering will be notified by your manager, taking additional projects or responsibility strategically, and building relationships, understanding what your boss actually needs or what he or she's asking for. So I hope preventions and things like that. So I think this is really interesting and something I'm learning to use and to engage with as well, the last two tabs in particular. Now, first, principles. And I'm actually a big fan of this last asset, first principles, is to break down, giving me very crisp, short statements and belief systems about how somebody thinks. So I'm going to use a slightly different person. Like, how about we use Seth Godin? Oh, all right. Let's type in Seth here. All right. So let's choose Seth Godin. All right, so Seth is a brilliant mind. It's really interesting that I think he's all about first principles. And there's a lot you can learn from him, even if he talks for 30 seconds. And in this case, I was very lucky to have spoken with him one-on-one, face-to-face for over half an hour. So breaking down the core elements, what did I learn? Generosity and service, authentic communication, voluntary enrollment. He talks about enrollment a lot. I love these because in a way that it's hard for me to summarize these key learnings in my head. I'm not Seth. I'm Faye, and I have a particular way of talking and thinking about what I'm learning. There's nothing wrong with that. But if I want to go back and reference exactly what I heard, what I learned from my guests, and really retell the story or comprehend it to another person, these are super interesting. And underlying assumptions. Let's look at this real quick. So what are some of the core elements of first principles? We have the core elements, we have underlying assumptions, we have cause and effect relationships, we have contradictions and potential weaknesses. So this is really interesting. I mean, I'm here analyzing Seth is pretty daring. So what's going on here? The approach relies on the willingness and intrinsic motivation of an individual, which can be a variable. All right, that's kind of true. And then lastly, not everyone will embrace emotional labor, which can limit the approach's effectiveness. That's also quite true. And again, I think a lot of these analysis definitely feels less biased. We do rely and we do leverage AI for generating these results. This is not us like typing in the background, providing them through PodIntelligence. There's just a lot of really interesting learning. Underlying assumptions is another one that sometimes when you're interviewing someone, when you're learning or reading, you don't really think about these things. So people inherently want to connect and help other people. Authenticity resonate more than literal sophistication. All right, interesting. So underlying assumptions, traditional adult education models are ineffective in fostering true learning. All right. So I hope that this is something you find intriguing, and there's a conclusion there as well. And some people, especially people we work with at webinar companies and these small businesses, a lot of our clients are actually offering us many ways and reasons to use these assets differently. For example, publishing them as blog posts. There's another one, for example, I want to show you, which I forgot to do earlier. Let's say leverage points or strategies. Which one should I use? What do you think? All right, let's use leverage points. So let's say this is cool, enrolling in a voluntary journey, things like that. So what if I can work with ChatGPT? So let's ask a question here, which is prepare a blog post based on these leverage points I learned from Seth Godin. And you can add additional things like will be published on faceworld.com. I mean, I review everything that I generate. This is only an example, but you can definitely ask ChatGPT to do more, like, follow my voice and my tone, my brand guideline. You can actually add those in later as well. And so all I have to do here, just literally copy and paste. Let's see what we get here. Thinking, this is O1, so it's going to be a little bit slower as well, but it's usually better content. All right, let's see what it gets. Look at that. So the power of volunteer enrollment, a key to deeper engagement. And of course, every once in a while, ChatGPT will freak out, but let's go back to 4.0, which I did. Let me maximize this. Wow, illustration, the LTMBA. Something I attended in 2017. I absolutely loved it. And still friends with a lot of, I would say, alumni. Actionable insights, creating opportunities, conclusion. Look at that. So from a single leverage point, you're able to generate a pretty juicy blog post, and you can certainly, and you should edit, review, and edit from there and really make sure it's your own. So this is a new beginning. As you can see, there's a lot you can do with PodIntelligence, and I've been playing with it because I think over the course of so many years, recording, editing, publishing all these long form content, you really cannot assume that people want to listen to every single episode from the beginning to end. In fact, most of them don't. Instead, we're giving them snippets and more. In this case, we're able to summarize the episode. The learning is much better. And I hope you enjoy this. Please let me know if you have any questions down below in the comments section. And I want to bring more of these behind the scenes content, like what I'm working, what I'm building, and how I'm using it with this audience. And so I will see you in a future episode and discussion very soon.